What is up? Welcome into Pushing the Pile, the inaugural CBS Sports Network episode. On today's show, we're going to be going through a little bit of headlines and a little bit of breakout players. The favorite time of year is the breakout player time of year, the offseason. It means hope. It means these guys could be doing well. I'm Mike Renner, NFL analyst. This is Kyle Long. You know him. You love him. Former Chicago Bear, All-Pro. And Kyle, we got some good headlines here right off the rip. Our first off the ball segment, because just before this show opened, we had big news in the NFL. The rare interdivisional trade.
Wild.
Commanders sending wide receiver Jahan Dotson, their first-round pick only a couple years ago, over to the Philadelphia Eagles. The details are Jahan Dotson goes to the Eagles, and a fifth-round pick goes to the Eagles. The Eagles send their top third-round pick. They have Miami Dolphins' third-round pick as well for next year, so they send the best third-round pick that they have, whether it's either the Dolphins or the Eagles, whichever one ends up higher, and 2 sevenths. When I first saw this, I'll be honest, I thought it was a fake report. I thought it was one of those fake reporters.
Aggregate accounts.
I didn't see it from Adam Schefter. I saw it from an Eagles beat writer, and I was like, that can't be real. Why would you do it in division? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a head scratcher to me. I mean, you hate the teams in your division. You kind of make that. It's an unwritten rule. I'm not going to go anywhere in my division. Obviously, Howie Roseman showed up with the ski mask in D.C. and he said, this is what's going to happen. They ended up getting another weapon who is a real weapon for Jalen Hurts in this offense. And for the Commanders in D.C., I mean, they're going to be looking to get some value out of this thing in the draft. But look, at the end of the day, you got a bird in hand, I think is worth more than 2 in the bush, Renner. So the Eagles come out of this thing on top, in my opinion.
I will say, from the Commanders' perspective, there's something happening behind the scenes here, because he was not necessarily even the starter at points during camp this preseason. Olamide Zaccheaus taking reps in the slot there as well for the Commanders. So he was probably disgruntled. This probably has that sort of blueprint written all over it, that he was unhappy there, wanted to be traded, wanted out. That's the only reason I can expect.
It's clearly mutual too, Renner. I mean, It's like the best thing to do in the NFL, the best way to be is be happy. And obviously he wasn't happy. Obviously management, the coaching staff wasn't very happy with him. And to your point, he wasn't even penciled in as a starter at some points during this preseason. He'll get an opportunity to shine in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I love it from the Eagles' perspective. Really no downside from the Eagles' perspective if you are netting this out. So those picks, if you go to any trade value chart, I use the PFF trade value chart. To me, it's better than the old school Jimmy Johnson one, because it really values those mid-round picks more accurately, in my opinion, for how they perform in the NFL. If you net out the picks, it comes out to about pick 105 is what the Eagles had to give up in terms of value for a guy like Jahan Dotson. To me, that's a no-brainer. What we saw from him his first 2 seasons, it's just insurance for that offense. Now there's just, you go 5 deep, where they're 5 across is Dallas Goedert, Jahan Dotson, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley. Those are your 5 guys running routes in that offense. That's got to be number one. If we're talking about skill position weapons in the NFL, is there anyone better than them right now?
It just seems like such a cast of characters that you would have to say that is the group. And if you're an Eagles fan, there's a couple of these emotional pieces missing. You think about Jason Kelce taking off. But look, Howie Roseman, this Eagles staff have found a way to get stars back in the building. They've still got their studs up front. And to your point, they've got that all-star cast at the skill positions. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch Jalen Hurts operate with all this talent.
If there's any silver lining from the Commanders' perspective, I'll say this. If he wasn't going to play much, and you weren't getting better trade offers, it's kind of a new era there where you get as much as you can. Because if he wasn't going to play and you wasn't happy there,
the value goes down.
This is 100%, infinitely more than the value we're going to get out of a guy if he's sitting on the bench unhappy. So kudos to them, I guess. All right, next story here in the first off the ball segment. We're talking about Pete Carroll. Apparently, even though he's in a supposed advisory role for the Seattle Seahawks, they haven't heard from him. He's not on the phone talking to anyone in the building right there with Mike McDonald now in charge.
Hell hath no fury, like a Hall of Fame coach scorned. And when you got a history like Pete Carroll does with the Seahawks, being on that West Coast, such a dominant coach, but he's taking a teaching role now. He's down at Southern California. He's hanging out. I like to think of it like Indiana Jones. There's the Professor Jones is one guy, but when he busts out the leather hat and goes out into the desert, he becomes Indy. And I think Pete Carroll has been Indiana Jones for so long, he's not used to being the professor. We could see him come back at some point. I'd love to. I know he's great for the game of football, but look, the silence, that's haunting there in Seattle.
To me, this is a non-story. The guy is a competitor. When you're a competitor, and I feel like you could relate to this after your career.
You go radio silent for a bit.
You're upset anytime you kind of get dissed by the team you know and love, and you did so much for. Like you said, there are 10 playoff appearances in 14 seasons.
Yeah.
Really transformed a lot of the defensive football we saw in the 2010s with that cover 3 scheme. Anytime someone says you're not good enough, it's going to hurt your pride. So to me, yeah, he'll come around in time. Well, 72 years old. I don't expect him out-coached anytime.
Well, 72 years old, yes, Renner, you're right. He's not a spring chicken, but I think there's something about chewing that gum that keeps him young, because if you look back at these Seattle teams, they did a great job of keeping their groups fresh. He was ahead of his time. Like we talk about Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams, he took care of his guys in training camps. Vets wanted to go play for him.
Yeah.
Rookies' introduction to the NFL was great because they had a really good culture, and that's a word thrown around a lot in the NFL. Pete Carroll understands how to make a culture happen with stars. So we're going to miss him in the league. Hopefully, maybe we see him again at some point.
I will say, with Mike McDonald, though, I don't think Seahawks going to be hurt. I think Mike McDonald truly could be an upgrade for them on the coaching side of the ball. All right, next in the first off-the-ball segment here, Bo Nix officially the starter after leading scoring drives on 6 of his 7 postseason drives.
Postseason, we're putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, there we go.
You know what you're talking about. He does happen to score a whole lot for this Broncos offense. And look, we've heard it all week. People have drawn the comparisons to Drew Brees, Sean Payton, Drew Brees. I'm going to say pump the friggin' brakes here for a second, okay, guys? We haven't had a rookie starting quarterback in Denver since John Elway. That guy was pretty special. So Bo Nix, big shoes to fill, but a great head coach in Sean Payton, a guy who's been there and done it with a number of guys. And the top of that list is Drew Brees, a guy who couldn't even see over the guards, and I don't think Bo Nix can either. But look, he sees through it. The ball's out quick. If I'm an offensive lineman, this is the type of quarterback I want to play with, a guy that doesn't take a lot of sacks. To your point, he took 1 million reps in college and got sacked like 3 times. So I'd love to protect him. I think they got a great thing going in Denver with a young quarterback. Sean Payton's happy with it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing here is when do you, in the whole when to start a rookie debate, it's when they can protect themselves and not develop bad habits, right? And with Bo Nix, with 61 college starts, with already having played for 5 different OCs in his collegiate career, now a new one in Sean Payton, you saw him be able to protect himself. He only took 11 sacks the past 2 years at Oregon. That ball's out. 2.44 second average time to throw last year, one of the quickest in all of college football. And yeah, some of that's screen-aided, but he knows where to go. He's good with his first read. He gets the ball there on time. Now, getting past the first read is something that will obviously be a TBD and how he fares in his rookie season with the NFL. But especially when you look at the rest of that QB room, whether it's Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, it was always going to be Bo Nix. It was always going to be Bo Nix.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing I love that your point about he knows, the basic things about when to get rid of the ball, not to take sacks. It's like I'm teaching my 2-year-old how to ride a bike. And, you can pretty much teach any 2-year-old how to ride a bike. The hard thing is stopping, right? Anybody can play quarterback. Not everybody can avoid these issues that come along with playing quarterback. And it seems like Bo is ahead of his time mentally, and it's because of that experience in college.
Last one here. A.J. Terrell, Falcons corner, signs a 4-year, $81 million extension with $65.8 million guaranteed. Probably a top 10 corner in the NFL. But, man, is this bad for the corner market?
That's expensive.
$20 million a year compared to CeeDee Lamb, who was the pick after A.J. Terrell, and what he's asking for at mid-30 millions a year. It's just hard to kind of justify drafting these guys super highly when they're really the market for them is not that high.
Yeah, you're going to have to owe all these guys so much money, which is why we see all these secondary players moving around, because sometimes these teams that draft them or they can't afford them. But in this case, Atlanta's going for broke. I mean, they've done a great job going and acquiring outside talent this offseason, and this is another way for Terry Fontenot and these Atlanta Falcons to bolster that defense. They know what they're going to have on offense. They've got stars. They've got a veteran at quarterback. Some would say they overdrafted a vet who's like 30 years old in his rookie year. So they're ready to go on offense. Let's piece this thing together on defense and make the team complementary. I think it's a good formula to win football games in Atlanta.
A.J. Terrell was once a second-year breakout in his own right. We're going to be talking about some breakouts on the offensive side of the ball, specifically the quarterback position, right after this.
Breakout!
Welcome back into the Pushing the Pile podcast TV version. We did some storylines off the rip. We're going to the breakout players now. QBs to start because, regardless of these other guys, these are the ones that are going to determine the fate of a lot of these teams' season, good or bad. Last year, I think the breakout QBs, I think we had two real ones in C.J. Stroud, Jordan Love. Baker Mayfield, to a degree, he obviously got himself a nice little deal on the back end of it. Who do you see as a guy who could join that kind of tier this year?
So I know you and I have put together a list here, and there's different genres of quarterback here. This is the retribution pick for me. This is revenge, redemption. It's Sam Darnold, a breakout quarterback candidate for me this year, and it's because of this. I've seen it happen before in Minnesota. In 2018, Case Keenum brought this team to go play against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. Albeit they lost, I think this Minnesota team's better. It's better coached. I think that the skill players around them, the offensive line's better. They've got a better tight end. I think they've got a lot of the pieces here for Sam Darnold to step in. He's a guy that's been thrown to the fire in some really bad situations. He's been to hell and back as a quarterback. And that guy on the screen talking to him right there by the name of Josh McCown is one that I trust with my life as a football player. What a great dude. What a great leader and mentor. And I think Sam Darnold will be he will have a very calming presence on Sam Darnold this season. And also, you're throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson. You got that great protection. Sam Darnold, we're rooting for you here at the Pushing the Pile podcast. And I'm looking to see the Purple People Eaters get some W's with you as the offensive player of the game. I think it's going to be a breakout for Sam Darnold.
Congrats. I think you're the millionth person to predict the Sam Darnold breakout year. It was year 2 in New York. It was year 1 in Carolina. It was even last year.
It was
Brock
rookie
Purdy
year.
Had that little injury. Everyone's like, Darnold's going to be better than him. It was every single year with this guy. To me, he's just a flawed quarterback. And his flaw is he throws the ball to the other team a lot. I just think he is not the high-level diagnoser of defenses that it takes.
I played with some guys like that before. It can be frustrating.
To be the dude. And it is. And now this is, I will admit, the best situation he's going to have in his NFL career. He has 2 bookend tackles that are probably top 5 at their respective positions. He has 2 wide receivers. One's top 5. One's probably top 35 to 45.
And one's shooting his way up the charts in Jordan Addison.
Yes, so it's a good wide receiving core. It's a great situation for him. That being said, I think he ends up somewhere in like the mid to lower tier of quarterbacks. I don't think he's earning himself even like a Baker Mayfield deal.
Gosh, you don't think the KSC effect is just going to be
on the backs of this? I'd gladly be proven wrong.
This will be fun. It'll be fun to go throughout the season and be like, I told you so, and you'll have your opportunities to tell me I told you so. Okay, the second breakout player. Here you got, Mike.
I have Anthony Richardson. He is what I saw in those 3 games, then he got hurt, was a guy who was ready for the NFL. Now, he needs to get more accurate. That one's obvious.
Physically ready for the NFL.
But he was truly calm in the pocket, calm under pressure, easy pocket movement, and a special athlete. I mean, the most impressive athlete in NFL Combine history at the quarterback position. 6'4", 243, ran a 4.43, jumped darn near 40 inches in the vertical. Like, he is truly a tier 1 rushing threat that we didn't get to see with Jonathan Taylor last year. In a tragic twist of irony, the game Taylor came back because the game Richardson got hurt. So we never got to see that combo. And now we get to see those two behind what I think is a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. We'll actually get to one of those offensive linemen here in the next segment. But I think that, and then you pair them with the receiving core with Josh Downs now in the slot, Adonai Mitchell, who Michael Pittman said he's learning releases from Adonai Mitchell, the rookie already. I just see a situation that's so good that even if he does miss a good amount of throws, he is going to join that just franchise tier of quarterback where you know he's the guy after this season.
I just think it cannot be emphasized enough how much of an outlier he is physically. To all the things you said, I mean, you can't even repeat it enough times. Anthony Richardson, if he can just so much as smell an understanding of the game plan, it's going to be trouble for all those teams playing against the Indianapolis Colts.
I mean, you see like Josh Allen in the pocket, right? And when a defensive end gets through and gets a hand on him,
can't bring him down.
You have to square those guys up, like truly be off a block, completely free, helmet in, stomach, to get those guys down. That's not the case with like a Bryce Young, unfortunately. Bryce Young was just like a hand gets on him, and that guy's dragged to the ground, unfortunately. And so when you have that paired with an offensive line that's going to give you that, right? Like, it's going to give you not a lot of free runners at you. I just think that's such a good situation for him that we'll see the natural just physicality of him excel in ways that you can't unless you're 6'4", 243. They run a 4.43.
And I love that O-line matches his freak, so to speak. You know, it's a group that when they're in the huddle, they're definitely all on the same page. Sure. And you know what? I want to see this guy match his O-lineman's freak. Okay? The third player on the list. Deshaun Watson, okay? You remember him? Dabo Swinney said this guy's the Michael Jordan of football when he was coming out into the National Football League. And I remember on the Bears, there was a few quarterbacks in that Mitch Trubisky draft where people were saying we could get him. Deshaun was one of those guys. We didn't get Deshaun, and we go see him have success. Obviously, he's taken a kind of Lewis and Clark route to be where he is today as a leader, a quarterback in the National Football League. But you take a look around that locker room and the guys he is able to have the luxury to play with. And I know Nick Chubb's on his way back from a Minka Fitzpatrick hit to the knee, but at the end of the day, the offensive line, the tight end, the receiving core, Kevin Stefanski, we love this unit. And if Deshaun Watson can just figure out one iota of what he used to do as a quarterback, I think he can break out in a new way, and people will have a newfound respect for the game that Deshaun Watson has played so well for so many years.
Are we predicting here, or are we like wishing? Because I didn't see a lot last year to get me excited, and that shoulder injury, I'll be honest, I'm terrified if I'm a Browns fan. He's already getting held out of practices for shoulder
They've
soreness.
protected him because of this shoulder thing for a long time. But you know, you got to think with modern advances in technology and medicine, they're going to have Deshaun Watson, you know, doing pretty good. But it all comes down to that offensive line and guys like Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio, and the list goes on and on in that Cleveland offensive line. That's what makes people comfortable. If Deshaun cannot be gun shy, if that arm isn't awful, if he feels okay, he doesn't have to be 100% Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
If he comes out and does 65, 70% of what he is capable of doing talent-wise, it's going to be a breakout year for Deshaun Watson.
Really, his career has been tragic in the fall off that we've seen because he was so excited as a young quarterback. Nowhere close to that.
He made it look
Since he got
easy.
to the Browns. Yeah. The two guys we haven't mentioned that are glaring omissions here that my heart says I want them to break out, but my head says I'm not quite as confident really predicting it. Will Levis, Tennessee Titans quarterback. Bryce Young, obviously the #1 overall pick, Carolina Panthers quarterback. Do we think we see either of them really take that next step this year?
I would love to. I mean, I'd love to see every quarterback in the National Football League do well. I am not quite sold on the Bryce Young pick. The Will Levis pick, I'm all on board for.
Okay.
You know, I'm like putting mayo in my coffee and everything. I think the guy has two things that make you special off Jump Street. He's got incredible arm talent, and he's got moxie about him. He's got a certain toughness. He's got a grit about him that I just love. He's not afraid to throw the ball down the field. But look, it's the simple basics of offensive quarterback play that he's going to have to dial in on in this offense. And I think with Coach Callahan and the cast of characters around him, you know, obviously you've got Hopkins, you've got a number of guys you can throw the ball to. Will Levis will take shots down the field. I respect that in a quarterback. He's not gun shy, and we've seen he can take hits, he'll get back up, and he'll talk trash right to those D linemen's face. There's something about a quarterback like that makes an O-lineman play a little bit harder. We've seen it in Chicago here this preseason, and we're going to continue to see it in Nashville with Will Levis.
Levis, I love the weapons. And I love what I saw at the end of last year. I think he is tough as nails.
Chig.
I think he is, at minimum, going to be exciting as heck to watch. He is a fun player at the quarterback position, at minimum. But I look at these two OTs. You got a rookie at left tackle who had to switch sides in J.C. Latham from right to left side. And you have a Nicholas Petit-Frere who really has shown me nothing on the right side to get me excited. And Will Levis, with his pocket presence, he sometimes just is oblivious. And so there might be some sack fumbles.
He gets laser focused on some of these guys down the field. He does.
And with Bryce Young, I think they did enough, but there really wasn't much on his rookie tape to really say. It was, if you're believing in Bryce Young, it's the pre-draft eval, which I loved him. I had him as QB1 in that draft, but his rookie year was tough. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see much from him in the preseason. So when the lights turn on,
his mental makeup,
so.
his mental makeup really keeps him in the ball game for me. I think that he is a mentally tough dude, and being through what he went through last year and having to hear it from all the news outlets and talking heads like myself and you, You know, Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, they just weren't good enough last year. And people talk about getting fleeced in that Chicago deal. You're going to have to swallow that pill and move forward. And I think if anybody's mentally tough enough to get it handled, it's Bryce Young. And with a new head coach and with a new opportunity, I think it's new blood in the water in Carolina.
And those three quarterbacks that we're predicting to break out after the break, we're going to get to some of the guys those QBs will be throwing to. Some wide receivers, some O-line, some tight ends that we're predicting breakouts for after this. Welcome into Pushing the Pile, a very green set here, and we're talking about some green light offensive players here, the guys who are going to go and take the next step this season. And I know where you're going with your first one. You're going to start in the trenches.
You know what? I'm going to start green. We're wearing green. You know, talking breakouts. Green means go. You know, go dogs go. Well, the first dog that I want to go is the Chicago Bears right tackle, Darnell Wright. And he's a guy that I fell in love with last year when he got to Chicago. He plays a physical brand of run offense. He can block his butt off. First down, second down, third down, man scheme, gap scheme, zone scheme. Darnell Wright can do it. But the thing that really impressed me about Darnell Wright, his ability to stay square in the pass game, the ability to play with length, and he runs guys by. When you get to the top of that rush, that's when you get the second move. First, you might get a club rip from this defensive end. Then on step 3, that offensive lineman starts to turn, and that's where you get the hump move inside. Darnell Wright does a great job of sitting down, getting that butt and pad level down, and he can really anchor on some of these speed rushers. I love Darnell Wright's game. Huge breakout season. America will fall in love with number 58 this season.
Yeah, I was a little upset as a Packers fan with Darnell Wright's tape as a rookie. It was as advertised, you know, as a top 10 pick, because, you know, when you see guys who are strong in college, and he was obviously his last year at Tennessee, an ox, and then they go to the NFL and they're like, oh, they're still a man amongst boys. That's when you know that you have something special there. What I love is just the ability to torque with his upper body, right? Like when you get that kind of both guys locked into each other, he's the one manipulating the defensive end, not the other way around. And that's how it should be if you're an elite offensive tackle in the NFL. And for Darnell Wright, that's what we saw as a rookie. I'm going to go with another offensive lineman, a guy who's not that level physically, but what he can do from a pure athletic standpoint, I think is special, and I think he's going to be a household name-ish, as much as a household name can be at the offensive tackle position after the season. Bernhard Raimann, Indianapolis Colts. What I've seen from his career progression, dating all the way back to college. So I'll think about this. In 2019, he was a 245-pound tight end. 3 years later, he's getting asked to block the blind side in the NFL for the Indianapolis Colts as a rookie third rounder. All he's done since then, from being that 6'7", 245-pound tight end to now a 6'7", 310-plus pound.
That's all he did.
Yeah, that guy's put on some weight, all above board, I've heard from people. And he is now what we saw towards the end of last season. It was a high-end pass protector. It was a guy who truly can be a franchise type of left tackle. PFF gave him an 82.7 overall grade last year with 34 pressures on 620 pass blocking snaps. So he's like a jumbo Ivan Drago, too, if you've ever seen this guy in real life.
Yeah, and I think that when you got to think about styles making fights, you know, when it's an offense versus a defense. But then when it's talking about fits for these players, particularly on the offensive line, it's what they're going to be asked to do. When I think about Penei Sewell in Detroit and the things he's asked to do with the play starters, we've seen him in motion. Trent Williams, same thing. You get these physically gifted offensive linemen that break the mold of the fatties up front that block. You can do a plethora more, things with these guys. Get them out in space. You know, quick smoke screens to the slot guy, and the cavalry has arrived, and they're 300 pounds, and they're violent. That's what your guy is going to be doing. Bernhard Raimann in Indianapolis. Shane Steichen will take full advantage of that skill set.
And the other thing is going from Gardner Minshew to Anthony Richardson, you have to rush those guys differently. You can't inside move against Anthony Richardson, right?
Rush integrity.
Asking to have him break out to the left side and run for 30 yards. So, yeah, you have to have rush lanes. You have to mush rush at times. So you'll see a different just ease of assignment even for Bernard Raymond next season.
Yeah, and I mean, with these quarterbacks, to your point, I don't think Anthony Richardson is losing sleep over maybe an inside move on a tackle because he might be salivating at that opportunity to turn his back to the defense and get outside. You're going to have to understand that as a tackle. Bernard Raymond and these guys will start to figure out slowly but surely that they have to protect a different type of athlete back there. And the play's never dead with Anthony.
All right, who's your next one?
My number 3 guy is going to be Luke Musgrave.
Oh, thank you. I love it.
From the Green Bay Packers, and I know the Bears fans out there hate to hear me say this, but look, I love a good archetypical physique on a player, whether it's an offensive tackle, a guard, a center, a quarterback. Now, this guy, Luke Musgrave, he's like 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds. Look at the stash on old boy, okay? He's like the pride of the Midwest, but he is an Oregon State Beaver previously and a Green Bay Packer, so it takes a lot for me as a Duck and a Bear to talk about this guy. But look, he had 11 games last year, a lot of production from him, nearly 400 yards for Jordan Love. And with the things they're going to try to take away from Jordan Love, downtown Julie Brown type shots, you're going to be looking at a lot of Luke Musgrave moving the sticks for this offense. Matt LaFleur knows it. I know it. You know it.
Yeah, with the breakout of Tucker Kraft at the end of the season, the other tight end, when Luke Musgrave went down, I think you'll see a ton of 12 personnel.
12.
You'll see a ton of 12 personnel in there.
For those of you at home, 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends.
You'll see a bunch of that now with Josh Jacobs there because that's what they want to do. They want to set the tone in that area of the football field so then they can take those shots. And no tight end in the NFL right now, I think, is faster than Luke Musgrave has top speed. No one has that vertical ability that he showed as a rookie. They said in practice at times last season, he was the fastest guy on that football field in terms of his
Wasn't
GPS
he like a
numbers.
4.5 coming out?
He was a 4.5 guy.
At 255, 260?
But his top speed is just unique for a guy. Yeah, when he gets up to speed, and he's solidly built too. He is not a small, undersized guy at tight end. So very much looking forward to it. Had a few misconnections with Jordan Love. Hopefully his ball skills improve. That's really going to be
we love ball
the
skills
biggest
on this
thing
show.
For him. Another guy whose ball skills need no questioning. It's more of just his field-seeing ability. It's Jameson Williams, the Detroit Lions wide receiver who was once a guy they traded a lot of picks for there in Detroit to move up, go get in the first round a couple years ago, but obviously immature to start his career. Now, everyone knew his rookie year was going to be a wash coming off that ACL he tore in the SEC championship game or it was the national championship game, actually, that he tore that ACL.
That sucks.
Unfortunate. So we always knew that was going to be the case, but then the gambling that he got popped with, 4-game suspension second year, apparently, all the reviews, all that immaturity from early on in his career, gone. Dan Campbell's raved about his work ethic. The training camp highlights that we've seen from this guy look unique, and he's still only 23 years old. He is younger than Xavier Legette, the Panthers' first rounder. This guy has a lot of meat on the bone developmentally, a guy who I actually had as wide receiver 1 in that draft class purely from an on-field perspective because what he can do with his speed, ability to stop, and ability to manipulate defenders is just so threatening for opposing defenses. I think you see a guy who is the perfect complement to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Working that underneath middle of the field, Jameson Williams, the over-the-top guy now. Jared Goff just got to hit him.
Yeah, Jameson Williams, sometimes we would play against these really good defenders, and our coaches would say, where's Waldo? Jameson Williams is the Waldo for this Detroit Lions offense. I think you need to keep one eye on him at all times. And to your point, with Amon-Ra St. Brown being the true number 1 beater against zone or man, this guy can find the soft spots. And if there are no soft spots, he can run by all the hard spots and make a soft spot downtown.
I love how you just put that. Run by all the hard spots.
Run by the hard spots. Nope, nope, nope. Hand in the air.
All right, who's your last one?
Okay, my last guy is going to be Khalil Shakir in Buffalo. So obviously a lot of volume leaving that locker room with Stephon Diggs, not just volume in terms of smack talking, but I'm talking volume in terms of targets. So, I got a guy named Mitch Trubisky who I'm buddies with up there, and I asked my guy, I said, I like the way this guy Khalil Shakir looks. I think he's going to fit in really well in your offense. And he just wrote back one word, stud, period. I like Khalil Shakir. I trust my former teammates, and Josh Allen is going to have to trust him a lot this year because there is that large number of targets that they're looking to fill. He's a do-anything inside kind of guy for the Buffalo Bills receiving room.
In my opinion, this was why they felt comfortable moving on from Stephon Diggs, is what you saw from him in his semi-breakout last year when he went for almost 600 yards a year ago. Filling kind of that slot role mostly, but if I'm projecting this lineup and going who can fill Stephon Diggs' shoes the best, whether it's Curtis Samuel, whether it's Keon Coleman, whether it's Khalil Shakir, To me, it's Khalil Shakir. So I think it'll be a by committee.
Why is that?
Just the size and route running ability is like that. It
So
is
he's
like
similar to
Stephon Diggs
Stephon, maybe
do.
not same.
I'm not saying same, but he can run those same route trees that Stephon was so good at. And you kind of have those other guys as complementary pieces. All right, those are our offensive breakouts. We'll get to the flip side of the ball, defensive breakouts, right after this. We're doing the 5 breakouts on the offense. Now we're doing the 5 breakouts on the defense. Guys, we think take that next leap into the lexicon of the best players in the NFL. I'll let you kick it off, though.
You know, and some of these guys are well known, but we don't really consider them stars yet.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they've had some production. And, you know, at the top of this list is a guy that you will get to know very well this year. He's going to stand out on tape to you. He's bigger than most of the guys at his position. You're going to see him in a lot of nationally televised games, being that he's on the Kansas City Chiefs. My first pick in the secondary, Joshua Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed leaving town, obviously, after a really successful run in that back end and Steve Spagnuolo's defense. But this guy, 6'3", Joshua Williams, he's going to have an opportunity with teams clearly having to throw the ball against the Kansas City Chiefs to showcase his coverage ability, his ball skills, which we love and know so well here on Pushing the Pile. Josh Williams, you've made the list, number 1. I really love a freaky long defensive back, somebody that can go break up these passes, high point the football, a real threat in your secondary you got there in Kansas City. Young guy, get to know the name.
Williams was a 4th rounder back in 2022. He could not have gone to a better situation. Like I said, he is 6'3", 193 pounds, and already one of like the better press corners in the NFL. From just what we saw on tape in a rotational role, obviously as a backup there most of his time, has been a spot starter. I think they already have one stud in Trent McDuffie. I think he comes in and replaces a lot of what we saw from L'Jarius Sneed. He's not going to be a one-to-one. I don't think you're going to expect that from right away, but he's so good at the line of scrimmage. And again, with Steve Spagnuolo and that defense, how much they press more than any other team in the NFL.
Nobody pressed like L'Jarius, though.
But yeah,
we're going to miss it. Shout out to L'Jarius.
You can't say we're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss it as fans.
Yeah,
for sure. We're gonna miss enjoying it. I'm gonna go to another corner.
Okay.
Another guy who has that long wingspan, almost 6'8" wingspan himself, but he hasn't taken a snap in the regular season at corner in his NFL career.
6'8" wingspan.
Dax Hill, the former Bengals first-round pick, played safety his first 2 seasons. Was not comfortable there whatsoever. Now his college career, he was a slot corner. And a lot of times slot corners, depending on play style, you either want to bump them to safety in the NFL, sometimes you want to keep them at slot if they're like a Brian Branch, sometimes you want to kick them on the outside. I said on draft day, when they drafted him, I thought they were moving him to the outside. They didn't. Now they did this preseason. 4 targets, 3 pass breakups, was at the catch point on the other one. He looked like a fish back in water. And I'm excited for what he can do across from Cam Taylor-Britt. I think this Bengals secondary is back to the form we saw getting them into the AFC Championship.
Yeah, there's a few of those guys in that Cincinnati backside of that defense that are just ballers, and they're waiting to emerge as stars. And you mentioned Cam Taylor-Britt. I love the Dax pick as well. My third pick is going to be an edge rusher by the name of Boye Mafe. Okay, I believe he had 8 or 9 sacks last year. But when you look at the team that he's on, the Seattle Seahawks, and this always, in my mind, I see the game like this. You're going to get a lot of opportunities to rush the passer when you're winning football games. I think they're going to score points in Seattle. I think those edge rushers, particularly in Seattle, where we know home field advantage is so important, are going to be a big part of the recipe for victory in Seattle. So Boye Mafe, I've got him in double-digit sacks this year. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch him. Geno Smith, another year with those receivers. You know, you got JSN and all those characters up there. JSN's the number 3 receiver. We're talking about this before we went live. They're going to score points. He's going to have opportunities to rush the passer. He knows how to get home. He's shown it. Superstar this year, Boye Mafe.
I will say this with Boye Mafe. He is going to explode because of Mike McDonald's defense. I mean, he is going to be put in the best of situations. You saw that last year with the Ravens. Pretty much every guy along that D-line has like a career year under him with just how much they throw at opposing offensive lines from a front perspective, getting them a lot of one-on-ones. And you've already seen the leap from year 1 to year 2 with him, going from 3 sacks to 9 sacks. Definitely a different type of player. With his tools, like coming out pre-draft, everyone's like, the sky is the limit for this guy. He has it all physically. But he wasn't even a starter at Minnesota until his 5th or 6th year, I believe. Like, he was a really late breakout then. I think the fact that the arrows pointed up so quickly for him very good sign for the rest of his career.
And not a ton of reps on that body.
Yep.
Live reps. Obviously, he's had a lot of practice, but to your point, he wasn't a starter until late. So mine was Boye Mafe. What you got?
I got another defensive lineman, a former first rounder who's actually on a new team. So we're going to late breakout here. A fifth year, Jahan Kinlaw.
Yep.
Former first rounder of the San Francisco 49ers, a guy who had a troubled start to his career. Couldn't see the football field early on. Last year, though, we saw a little bit of a mini breakout from him. 31 pressures, started actually seeing that talent we saw from him coming out of South Carolina. But then this offseason, he claimed, and it's been corroborated by some people in that Jets front office, 35 pounds of muscle he put on, he said.
We got to get
He's
him in
up
the
to
bod
330 pounds, and I'm going to read to you what he ate every single day of the offseason.
Okay.
For breakfast, 9 eggs, a whole avocado, and spinach. For lunch, 6 chicken breasts with a salad. And for dinner, pasta with a pound of ground beef. So that's how you put on 330 pounds.
Boneless, skinless on all this, or is he just going bone and skin?
I think he has.
Probably got all the muscle, boneless, skinless.
He probably went boneless, skinless, but
I'm a chicken thigh guy. I prefer the skin.
I think, yeah, it tastes better. It's not that much more in terms of fat. Just go for the thighs.
Absolutely. I like a good oven-baked chicken thigh.
But then he's on the D-line where it's like he's got Quinnen. He's got everyone around him. He has no.
Imagine coming into the league as Jahan Kinlaw and you look around your defensive line room and you got all these avatars walking around. You got Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner. Now, obviously, the room looks different. He's in a new spot. But that's a tough way to come into the league, to say I have to measure up to these guys. And obviously, being a high pick, people expected a lot out of him. But now he gets an opportunity to go to New York. He's going to break out with this new offense, and I keep going back to the offensive complementary football, but he's going to have plenty of opportunities to get into the 40s in pressures. He was in 30s this past year, 40s, maybe 50 for this guy, Jahan Kinlaw.
Let's see. I think your last one's his teammate.
My last one is a guy that I did not get to cross over with, okay? So I finished in Kansas City right before they started winning all these damn Super Bowls, okay? So I got no rings. I don't even have a watch on, okay? This guy's name is George Karlaftis, and he's got a few rings now. And he's the defensive end that you see out there, the big Greek freak, George Karlaftis, getting after the quarterback. He is so strong. He's like George of the jungle out there. He is a monster. He's a man amongst boys. I love the way that he can press the pocket. He uses every ounce of that strength to fold these tackles into the pocket, and you know they do a great job with the coordinated rush in Kansas City. Obviously, they got a guy who can be a 4-eye, he can be a 3, he can kick out the end. Now George reaps the benefits of having a lot of one-on-ones. You're going to see him get home a lot. George Karlaftis, 15 sacks this year. That's what I'm going to say.
That dude's also a tailor-made Steve Spagnuolo defensive end. He loves those jumbo guys who can, if they want, rush inside, but who more often than not are going to just collapse the pocket every single play. He wants quarterbacks to feel uncomfortable. And Karlaftis, with his motor, not only can do that, he can not only get off his right tackles back into quarterbacks' laps, sheds, gets the quarterbacks.
He can get buckets.
I agree that this year stars are kind of aligning for him.
If you're a D lineman, you want to play with George Karlaftis because whether you're running TEs, ETs, TTs, he's going to be the guy that's going to beat up and bang up that guard or that tackle that you've been going against all game. And the next thing you know, you're free for a home run rush. The next play, he may be free for a home run rush. That's why I think he's going to have so many sacks this year.
And Karlaftis, only 23 years old. We talk about a guy who was back in college at Purdue. He moved off campus right next to the facility so that he could be in the facility before everyone else there. Was on the Greek national youth water polo team as a kid. He's a unique dude. And now, one of the better defensive
I heard he only
NFL.
eats feta cheese for breakfast.
Dude, feta cheese, don't sleep on it. It's a good breakfast.
That's Greek, right?
Any other defensive players you see as potential breakouts this year? I'm going to give you 2.
Okay.
Because I think we see 2 corners enter that elite echelon of island guys in the NFL. 2 former first-rounders, so I'm not going out on a limb here. But Derek Stingley Jr., what I saw from him in the preseason was lights out. I saw from him at the end of last year when he came in and started just picking off passes left and right. And then J.C. Horn.
Okay.
The guy who just could not stay healthy. Hasn't been able to, but every time we see him on the football field, he looks like a guy who can truly be a press man island guy on the outside. So those 2, I'm going to say, look out.
I'm going to throw out a name, and this is an Oregon Duck. This is a highly drafted guy, but he's in New England, so not many of you really watch him, let's be honest, because New England's not the hottest thing in the NFL right now. Christian Gonzalez. And when he's healthy, I don't think there was many there were any other pro-ready guys as skilled as Christian Gonzalez when he came in the league. And we're going to get to see him healthy this year with a new coaching staff, but it's that same football game that he's played for so long. I love his game. I think he's going to do a really good job in New England. So Christian Gonzalez makes my honorable mention list.
Those are our defensive breakouts. We have some trivia on some breakouts after this break.
Out.
All right, Kyle, you broke out year one. There was no transitional period, but some guys aren't as lucky. Some guys take a little bit longer. And because I'm an avid trivia fan, we're going to ask you and the people at home to answer some questions about some older breakouts in NFL history.
Help me, people at home.
I think you'll get some of these. All right, first one up. Which is the oldest quarterback to win their very first NFL MVP award? Was it 2002 Rich Gannon for the Oakland Raiders? Brian Sipe in 1980. That one's I don't know where he played for then. And then 1999, Kurt Warner, obviously, of The Greatest Show on Turf. Los Angeles Rams. Which one do you think?
Well, I know that there was a time in Kurt Warner's life where he was asking people not what the personnel was, but whether they wanted paper or plastic. So he didn't have an immediate breakout as a professional football player. I do know he won an MVP. Rich Gannon was an old head. I believe that was a Mark Trestman coordinated offense, and they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm gonna guess Rich Gannon here, and I know that they lost in that Super Bowl.
Ding,
right?
ding, ding.
That's right. Okay.
37
great.
years old.
So Kurt was younger than I imagined. I thought he was maybe 34 when he won his MVP, but this is good. Okay, 1 for 1. Rich Gannon. Shout out to Rich.
All right, next one up. Which coach is the oldest to win their first Super Bowl? Was it Tom Coughlin in 2012,
Eubank.
Bruce Arians in 2021, or Weeb Eubank in 1968?
I'm going to have to go, deductive reasoning here. I don't know Weeb Eubank. This could be, he does not exist. He does exist. He's out of my jurisdiction. Bruce Arians, very old guy, 68. Tom Coughlin, also an older guy. But yeah, there you go. You know, this is our first trivia. This is our first trivia. Bruce Arians is the answer. He's 68. That's awesome, though. I mean, it just goes to show you you're never done. You're never done in this game.
You are not. And Tom Coughlin, is he still kicking around the league somewhere?
I heard you cannot be late at a Tom Coughlin meeting. You got to be like 10 minutes early.
All right, which player, last one here, which player is the oldest to make their NFL debut? Was it Chris Winkie, Brandon Weeden, who I believe was the oldest first rounder ever, or was it Sav Rocca, the punter, who famously got his bell rung in a preseason game and was walking sideways?
So the top two guys are both baseball guys, and I'm going to assume if it didn't work out in baseball, they weren't very old. Chris Winkie must have been 28, Weeden probably 27. I don't know how old Sav Rocca is, and if he's in this list, God, it's one of these. I'm going to guess Brandon Weeden. I met him, and he was an elder statesman.
Little trivia advice for you. If there's a name that's like really an outlier,
there's a reason he's there.
Usually it's a reason he's there because everyone knows that Winkie and Weeden
Show us Sav Rocca.
No one knows that Sav Rocca was a 32-year-old when he came into the league.
What was he on the MLS Cup before he played in the NFL?
I don't know.
With a name like that, he probably scored some goals.
Fun fact, though, the oldest rookie of all time was actually a tackle, Otis Douglas, who made his debut for the Eagles in 1946 at the ripe old age of 35.
More like oldest Douglas.
Older than me, even at this point. But there you have it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the initial CBS Sports Network edition of the Push in the Pile podcast. We'll be on doing this Mondays and Thursdays throughout the season, and you can find us 9:30 a.m. every Monday through Thursday once the season starts. Next Monday, you can find us there at 9:30 a.m. as well. Talking ball, pushing the pile, and always having a good time with it.
Find us on Twitter.
Until next time, keep pushing.